Bob Garner on the box call, calling in a wild turkey. Fred Trost on the shotgun. That's our Tuesday combination next week. Monday, I'm going to try it with a bow. After I get my gobbler, Wednesday we'll switch. How about that?
Well, I'll tell you what, Tuesday you'll probably be picking up a shotgun. They're difficult to kill with anything, let alone a bow.
That's right. The wild turkey is probably the second most wary game animal or bird in the country.
Wrong. He's number one. Beats. I know you're going to say the white-tailed
deer is. We're not going to get into that debate, but we are going to show you how to hunt wild turkeys, the difficulty involved, using a call, shotgun, a decoy. Try to show you the terrain and how to go about it. At least a lot of Michigan hunters will be starting next week. We'll tell you about the turkey season. Coming up, Bob Garner, Fred Trost. It's Thursday night. Time for Michigan Outdoors. Drizzle, snow. Here we are on April 17th. Here comes the snow a little bit more right now. Not what we're looking for, but this habitat, this terrain is what we're looking for turkey hunting.
That's right. You're looking for kind of some openings, some meadows. There seems to be a little oak around here, swamp edge, a few beach further over a little bit. All the stuff that makes turkey hunting really great.
There are 3 stages to hunting wild turkeys. Number 1 is locating the bird, finding where the bird is, the gobbler that you're going to call in. Secondly, calling that gobbler into shooting range. Thirdly, shooting the gobbler. That is the last and simplest part of the process. I'm going to set the shotgun against the tree here. This is where I'm going to be setting. We're going to do a mock setup for you to show you what turkey hunting is all about. But first of all, Bob, we have to locate that gobbler. We talked about the habitat. Deer and turkeys often congregate in the winter together. We've seen them up at the McKay Ranch.
Yeah, and they do. They congregate around that food source, especially where they're being fed artificially.
There are large flocks of turkeys in the winter that you'll find congregating together. 30, 40, 50, even 100 turkeys at a time. We've heard as high as 300.
That's right, and that happens over a large part of northern Michigan, especially when the winter gets a little tough.
Even though turkey and deer congregate together in the winter around the food supply, they're not exactly the same to hunt.
No, they're not. In fact, most people driving by seeing a flock of turkeys would think, geez, how stupid they are. They're barnyard-type animals. When they get to where they split off and they go into mating into the springtime, they become a very difficult sort of bird to hunt.
That's right. Now, white-tailed deer have an advantage over turkeys in that they have a nose.
That's right.
Another thing, white-tailed deer generally cannot be called in.
That's true, Fred. And I know what you're leading up to, that whitetail is a more difficult animal to hunt.
Well, we all know that.
No, that's not true at all.
we debate that quite a bit. We won't go into that now, Bob. Let's call it truth.
I will say, I'll tell you what, I'll call it a truce, but I will say one thing. If a wild turkey had a nose, nobody'd ever kill one.
That's right. That's for sure. But locating that wild turkey, let's go back to that process. The way you and I hunt that we're going to be doing starting on Monday.
What we're going to do, Fred, is since we're going to be hunting a smaller expanse of land, about 700 acres, we're going to be out either walking or driving the trail roads, and we're going to want to use a call to make a hen yelp with a lot of volume. It's a little bit windy, though. That could be the big problem. Let me give it another shot.
It's the sound of the hen turkey we're trying to make to call in the gobbler. Now, the hen decoy right here we're going to use, but it's not nearly as important as the calling technique. When we call in the gobbler, the reason he's going to come into the hen is because we're at the tail end of the mating season, Bob.
Most of the hens should already be bred by the time we get into Monday when the season starts.
So generally, see, up until this point, the gobbler will be gobbling and calling the hens into him. What a position to be in.
That's the way it works in nature. It's kind of the reverse of what we're used to.
What we have now is closing time. So at 2 a.m., the gobblers will be out coming for the hens. If they hear a hen doing the cluck or the perk,
and the clucks are clucks, a little bit of the purring and the whines and yelps. They're going to be very interested in getting together with that hen.
Now, to get a response from the gobbler, you saw us go through a variety of calls. The quality of the call is not that necessary. Remember when we were at Rose Lake last year, Bob? This was during the mating season. A gobbler and a hen were in the pens.
That's right. And I wouldn't suggest that all of these techniques of clapping hands or whatever, honking horns, will work all the time, but sometimes that will stir up a gobbler's interest. I think right now he is in such an aggressive state that you could probably clap your hands together and get him to gobble.
Think so?
Go ahead and try it. Yeah.
Okay. So you don't need a turkey call at all.
Well,
It's amazing that a sound like that would get a response, but it's possible when you get out of your car, if you accidentally slam the door, to get a response from a gobbler.
you're not going to call in a turkey with your car door, but you can at least sometimes locate them that way.
Once they're located, this is where the real exciting part of the hunt starts. We recommend using a decoy, setting it out here. Now the gobbler is not going to come in by himself to a decoy, but he's going to hear a call. He's going to hear Bob will be set up over here, and this decoy hopefully is going to divert the gobbler, take his eyes off of the caller or off of the hunter. I'll be sitting by a tree, and hopefully this will divert the bird.
Yeah, it does, and it works really well in a lot of cases. But if you've got a gobbler coming in real hot, I would not even fool around with a decoy. You might risk spooking him.
Okay, now what we're doing is we're walking a distance from the decoy. We're going to be, how far would you normally be, Bob?
I would be probably a good 30 yards to 40 yards as a caller behind the decoy, and I would have my hunter set up just offset from the decoy a little bit closer to it.
Here we are at the spot where Bob is going to call from. We're probably 30, 40 yards from the decoy. The gobbler, we've heard, off into the woods. Where are you going to sit and how are you going to do it?
Actually, Fred, I'm gonna do something you don't need to do as a shooter. As a caller, I'm gonna go behind the tree.
Okay,
I'm
go
gonna
ahead
get
and
right out of sight.
Get back there. The reason he says not as a shooter, because when you're hunting wild turkey, their eyes are incredibly perceptive, many times more perceptive than our eyesight. They can see movement. If, as a shooter, you bend around the tree to look, or even as a caller, if Bob bends around to look, there's a good chance the turkey could see him. But you're going to sit back here and change from the yelping boxes, the yelping calls we made, to a mouth call.
That's right. The mouth calls, and I'll use different ones, but the mouth calls are really important. If they keep your hands free, Fred, and boy, to have your hands free, you got half the battle licked right there.
Well, if I'm calling by myself for some reason, we split up, I'll be using a mouth call.
Yeah, you sound good on a mouth call.
Okay, go ahead and give it a... That's the mouth call. You see, you barely move your mouth. Your hands are free, but they're not moving. We have the decoy right over here. We can see the decoy. Here's where Bob will be setting. Bob, let's go down to where I will be setting with the gun. This is what you might call it's a model setup. It's how you would do it if you could.
Well, if you can get them to cooperate, let me take this mouth call off.
Okay.
If you can get them to cooperate really well, yeah, this is the model setup. And notice too that the woods are not real thick, and the bird should come fairly easily, especially if he sees the decoy.
See, Bob is behind the decoy. The bird hopefully is listening with his ears and moving towards the sound, diverted by the sight of the hen turkey over here, the decoy. This is theoretical because they have such tremendous eyesight. If the turkey's coming in here, Bob, you hold the microphone for me. Show you what I'm going to do. I'll be using probably 6s or maybe number 4 steel because of the pattern we get.
You want pattern density, that's for sure. You need heavy shot.
Here, hold this gun here with this hand.
Okay.
And we don't have an auto loader. I don't. You only need one shot with the turkey, but you need some facial protection. Now this mask goes over my glasses, gives me little slots to see the turkey, has Velcro on the back, which I'm trying to get here. I tell you, my hands are cold.
Oh, it is.
I hope it warms up by Monday. Okay, this is why we're dressed in camouflage, to match the background. And I would also put on gloves, not necessarily these gloves, camouflage gloves.
Those will work fine. All you're doing is trying to break up an outline with camouflage and not leave any stark colors out there.
Okay, this is how I'm going to sit. I'm not going to be behind the tree because I don't want to have my motion startling the turkey. I'm going to sit down about like this. Now, the gun is loaded. I'm in position to shoot.
And you want to
Right.
wait till he's into about 35 yards, maybe with that gun. We patterned it out, and before you take him closer, if you can get him there.
Okay, so I'm going to be sitting here motionless. You're going to be back there calling.
You bet.
If we're lucky, this will be like yesterday when we had a gobbler come in close, and he made the gobble. We know he's right over the hill. The excitement builds. And then I merely pull the trigger.
That's probably the least exciting part of the whole hunt, but getting up to it, man, now that's when the hair on the back of your neck stands right up.
And I'm looking forward to the recipe, the wild turkey dinner after this. I certainly hope the weather forecasts hold and the weather takes a turn for the better, because that snow, the dropping temperature, the dropping barometric pressure, the cold weather just put a kibosh on the turkeys up there. We hope to call in a few more, but hopefully next week Bob Garner and I will have our wild turkeys here. We can show you a little bit about that. We're going to be hunting around the Clare area. By the way, last weekend, some mushrooms, some morels were reported in Gladwin County. That's a good sign. I think they've shriveled up now, but they'll be coming back. The weather we've had has thrown a clunker in a lot of people's plans. But if you want a rundown of all of the smelt areas, Michigan Natural Resources magazine, if you don't already get it, pick it up on the newsstand. Smelting for spring silver is the article. It lists more than 150 hot spots for dipping smelt. So you can't beat that. That tells you where to go. Now, it doesn't guarantee you smelt. We're looking for the warmer weather. It should pop anytime. We're going to be at the Singing Bridge this Friday night. They should be dipping them. Boy, I tell you, with some warmer weather like is predicted, tomorrow night should be good at Singing Bridge, the start of the run. This should last for a week to 10 days, maybe longer if we're lucky. So that's a rundown on the weekend forecast. That's some good news if the weather holds up. Bob, you have any good news in the outdoor headlines?
Fred, we are lucky this week. There is some good news. And speaking of the legislature, there's still a chance, it looks like a good chance, that the Kammer Act, the often rated Michigan Land Trust Fund, named after former Senator Kerry Kammer, will be on the ballot to be inked into the Constitution of the state of Michigan. That will give sportsmen and women across the state to vote how they feel on keeping this act around and to keep those oil and gas revenues used for recreational land acquisition. And up north last week, there was a tremendous festival, and it marked the 100th anniversary of the plantings of brown trout in Michigan, celebrated last weekend in Baldwin. The historical marker was unveiled at the site of the first plant in 1884 on the Pere Marquette River. Many trout fishermen and a lot of members of Trout Unlimited gathered at the celebration to hear speeches and to join in the planting of an additional 4,000 brown trout fingerlings. Using old Department of Conservation cream cans from their old hatcheries, for the planting, these healthy young brown trout will temporarily double the number of browns in the Pere Marquette. With additional management and more plants, it is hoped that the Pere Marquette will once again promise the angler some of the finest brown trout fishing anywhere in the world. Because of Trout Unlimited and DNR management, the next 100 years really couldn't look much better.
Sounds good, Bob. And of course, you know, TU, Trout Unlimited, was originated here in Michigan. In fact, Morton F. was one of the originators, and they're celebrating their 25th anniversary up in Traverse City the first part of June. It's going to be a big event there for trout
They
fishermen.
made a heck of a contribution.
So sure have. Continuing to. Ed, we got some questions about fish, don't we?
We sure do. A question here from Wilson. Where can I get a book with color pictures of fish so the Boy Scout group can learn to know the different species?
Okay, we get a lot of questions like this. People want to know how to identify Michigan fish. Here's what I recommend. There's a number of charts on the market, but this one is put out by the Superintendent of Documents. It has fishes of the Great Lakes, 52 species, everything from the common, well, there's our brown trout right there, and the salmons, various warm water fish. These are not just Great Lakes fish, even down here to some that you might not know about, these freshwater sculpin that live on the bottom. They're a food source for many of the bottom-dwelling fish like our lake trout. But this is available. It's in the $5 and $6 range. We have the address, the cost, and so on right here in our Club Digest. Now, when people ask me about books about fish, can't beat this one, McLean's New Standard Fishing Encyclopedia. I'm not here to sell it. It's about a $50 book. But I tell you, it has everything you want to know about fishing saltwater, freshwater, a lot of color plates, color photos, all different aspects of fishing and fish biology. I find this the best reference material. Probably overkill for most anglers, but it's a good one.
But if you're going to spend your life fishing, $50 is a
That's
small
right.
investment.
If you can spend your life fishing, more power to you. In fact, if you do spend your life fishing, you should be able to qualify for our Michigan Outdoors Trophy Report. Here's a trophy that's not known for its sport, it's pursued for its taste. That's a lake whitefish, and this one is 7 pounds 3 ounces, taken out of Lake Superior's Keweenaw Bay, jigging with a Swedish pimple. Robert Stinson from Chassel caught it. You can imagine how good these fish taste that come from those cold, clear waters of Lake Superior. And dropping down south, a very productive lake in Berry County produced this huge crappie. It's a white crappie that weighed in at nearly 2 pounds. It's 15 inches long. It took a minnow at 10 at night and was landed by William Forbes of Grand Rapids. The lake? That's Gun Lake near Hastings. Holds a lot more trophy fish of many different species than southern Michigan anglers realize. No beauty contests will be won here. Now, I'm not talking about the angler. It's the fish that's a strange sight. It's not a pike or a muskie, but it's a burbot. Master angler minimum is 5 pounds. This one came in at 10 even. It took a minnow fished by Michael Ayers of Oscoda offshore in Lake Huron. This was during February when burbot come into the shallows to spawn. Some good eating here. That's a freshwater codfish, you know. And some think it tastes the best of any Michigan fish. That's right, even better than walleye, but that's according to some people. But this is the fish that is tops in most people's book. An 11-pound walleye, no, it didn't come from Lake St. Clair. It came from the Manistee River. Matt Frampton from Sterling caught it on a rubber egg while he was steelhead fishing. 30 inchers like this aren't that uncommon to winter steelhead anglers. Kind of a nice bonus, even if it wasn't what Matt was going for. That's not Matt in the photo, by the way. That's Matt's dad. Matt took the picture. Now back to the Upper Peninsula for trophy pike. This one from a very productive lake in Marquette County that also produces all kinds of fish. I'm talking about Lake Independence. No telling what you might pull out of that lake, but Gary Blazer from Florence, Wisconsin was going for pike. He baited his tip up with a sucker and hauled in this 42-inch, 21.5-pound northern. Be nice to catch one like that, wouldn't it? Now I'm going to give you a lesson in the difference between a pike and a Great Lakes muskie. If we get in real close and look at the spots on a pike, they're whitish, bean-shaped spots, light spots on a darker body compared to this Great Lakes muskie that has dark spots on a lighter body. It's an easy way to tell the difference. Great Lakes muskie is a species that doesn't necessarily have to live in the Great Lakes. This one came from Elk Lake in Grand Traverse County. And get a load of the size. 33 pounds, 4 ounces, a wee bit over 4 feet long. It was speared by Cliff Boyd of Traverse City. All of these fish that you've just seen are ones that are trophies, master angler qualifiers in fact, but there are bigger ones out there in the same waters. Maybe you'll catch one this summer that qualifies. Be sure to register it with the DNR, send in a photo along with your entry form, and you just might end up on one of our Michigan Outdoors trophy reports. No, this is not wild turkey. It should be here with turkey season coming up, but most hunters, unfortunately, won't get turkey, and I think if they want to roast something up, I recommend you go to your freezer, pull out one of those venison roasts from last fall, and pop it in. We have a great recipe here for it. I'm going to put a couple slices of venison on here, Kathy, and if you want to dress it up with some of that sour cream topping, we'll serve it to Bob and Ed. The thing is with venison roast, and you can see it right here, you can see the problem. As I was carving it, it's extremely dry. Now, some people will take venison and they'll wrap it in bacon or they'll insert little pieces of lard in it, but I prefer just to cook it this way and try to add moisture to it through some marinades and so on. But it is a dry type of meat. But we're going to see if Ed and Bob don't enjoy that sour cream topping on rice. I think they're going to like it.
I think so too.
Okay, what we do with a roast like this that does not have a lot of fat in it, that's characteristic of venison, here is a shoulder roast before it's cooked. And this has the shoulder blade in it, and it does have some fat and some connective tissue, which I normally recommend that you remove if there's enough meat. On a shoulder roast that's small like this, there's so much that I recommend using a moist method of cookery, which is what we're going to do in the oven, and cook it for a long time. So this is what we're going to do. Kathy, let's put together the marinade.
Okay.
If you're following along in your Club Digest, venison and sour cream here. For April 19th, we have 2.5 cups of red wine. And this can be most any type of red wine. In fact, it could be beer,
Yeah,
very frankly.
they do the same thing.
They're
be
a
quite
good,
as
a good
strong.
base for a marinade. We're going to add to this about a half cup of
Juice, apple juice,
apple
or cider.
juice or apple cider. Our spices are very basic. A couple bay leaves. And what else you have in there?
Just 4 peppercorns.
Well, 4, 5, or 6. Those are small ones. And we're going to add a tablespoon of
Chopped
parsley,
parsley.
chopped parsley. Now, this is the basic marinade that we're going to soak this roast in overnight. We'll stir that up a little bit. Put the roast in there and make sure it's covered. Now, you're going to want to get up during the night and turn it over, right, Bob? I mean, you're up anyway with Andy.
Yeah.
How old is Andy now?
What, 5 weeks?
5 weeks old. So Bob is up, so he can turn his roast a number of times every night. After it marinades all night long, this will help tenderize it and add some flavor to it. We're going to put it in a roasting pan. If it's a large roast, you're going to put it on a rack. If not, you can set it right in the bottom of the roasting pan. And set it in just like that. And Kathy, we're going to make up a marinade baste.
Right.
Why don't you tell them what's in there?
Okay, this is just a strained marinade. It has all the parsley and bay leaves and everything out of it.
But of course, after it's been soaking all night long, this will have a real good flavor, the juice will.
Right.
And she's going to put in about a cup of the marinade with some butter. And then go ahead and pour it over there. This is what you would do after it was marinated all night, and I would add a little salt to this roast as well. We're going to put that in the oven,
So you want to save some of this to keep brushing on.
but still you're going to want about a cup in there because this will make its own drippings. We're going to put it in for how long? What
About
do you-
2.5 to 3 hours.
Is that enough for you?
Yeah, I think so.
I can put it in, as long as it's moist, I'd put it in for 3.5 hours. Make it just come
Yeah,
all
you don't
apart.
want it real dry.
It makes a world of difference. Now, while that's cooking, now that's going to end up looking like this. As you can see, no matter how many times you baste it, it's still going to dry out. So what we're going to do is make a sour cream sauce on the top. And this really makes it. It really doesn't look anything more like brown gravy at this point, but what does that have in it, Kathy?
2 tablespoons of flour.
Okay, white flour, and we're going to add about a cup of sour cream. Both of those are white. How'd it get brown?
From the drippings from the pan, from the roast.
Okay,
which
now-
We've added a cup of the drippings.
That's right. After this was cooked, the fat would be down in there along with the marinade, and we'll add a cup of that.
And a half a cup of wine.
Right, or you could, if you marinated with beer, you could add some beer to that.
Either one.
Then we asked the guests how they liked it.
Oh, is this good? This is delicious.
Well, I just hand this right back to you, and you go over and give me some more.
Get a refill on it.
You know, it looks dry, but it's not tough. That's surprising. It's not tough at all.
I didn't say it was tough. I said it was dry. It's like the white meat on turkey, or on chicken
okay.
when you roast it. It's dry, but it isn't tough. I think this is the same consistency. Wouldn't you agree, Ed?
Oh, yeah, and the gravy is delicious. Oh, the wine and the apple cider. Oh.
Some people don't care for a lot of wine. You might want to cut back the wine, or as I said, use beer. But it's a tasty way to prepare
It's kind of
venison.
something you have to develop a taste for, though. It's a little bit too tangy at first, and then all of a sudden, you just love it.
Are we going to be eating venison roast in the next couple of weeks, or are we going to have turkeys?
We're going to have turkey.
Good.
Great.
Wow.
No doubt about it.
This recipe, by the way, is in our Club Digest, Venison and Sour Cream. It came from Carol Eberle's book called Michigan Cooking and Other Things. It has a few game recipes in it. Details coming up at the end of the show, how to get a free copy of the Club Digest. Our calendar involves smelt dipping tomorrow night. If you're up around the Singing Bridge area, look for our cameras. That's where we'll be, maybe up to Tawas. Bob Gardner and I will be turkey hunting around Clare. Monday only, I hope. Probably Tuesday and Wednesday, too. Pray for good weather. Have a good weekend. We'll see you next week.
Can get a turkey. I know it's debatable, but I think a deer's nose gives it the edge.
I don't know. Fred Bear had a lot to say about that, and he says the deer's nose gives it the edge. Who's to quarrel with Fred Bear?
You can't call a deer either.
Some
Make that
people
noise.
can. Some people
Yeah,
can,
well,
but it's
rattle
not
them up.
easy.
You know another thing, I'll show you why. You can't do with a deer. Watch this. I can call a turkey. Watch this. They'll gobble.
Him in. Call
They'll-
him in.
Call him in. Call him in with a car door. That's a different problem.
Yeah, I do know they've been called in with rusty gates that squeak a little bit. Also folding chairs. Guys have used some unusual things to call in turkeys. Cocktail straws, barrels, ballpoint pens, they all work fine. But you have to find the hot gobbler.